Hey there, tonight. We're not trailing silk robes through royal halls or chasing tales of knights and their polished glory. We're heading into the quiet margins, through cold stone corridors and smoky kitchens. We're slipping into the places. History barely glanced at where life was hard, work was endless, and names were often forgotten. The scullery maid who woke before the birds, the spit boy whose arms ached from turning meat for hours, the laundress whose hands froze in the basin, the night guard who paced alone, listening to the wind instead of sleep. This isn't a story about thrones or triumph. It's about toil, about aching joints and backs bent too soon. It's about the invisible people who held the castle together with blistered palms and silent endurance. 10 days, 10 lives, all under the same roof, but each one trapped in a world of its own. If stories like this help calm your mind and settle your thoughts before bed, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you peace. And while you're here, tell me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is. I always love seeing how far these quiet echoes can travel. So now, let the firelight glow gently behind your eyes. Let the shadows soften. Let your breath slow. And let's begin, not with the noblemen, but with those who serve them from the shadows. Good morning. Well, not really. You didn't wake because you were rested. Let's not pretend. You woke because the stone beneath your spine has drained the last hint of warmth from your bones. Also because the cook stepped on you twice. That's just how mornings begin when you're the lowest ranking organism in a medieval castle. Welcome to the elite, prestigious, and highly undervalued position of scullery maid. You are unpaid, unwashed, and unseen. Unless, of course, someone's looking for a scapegoat or a mess to blame. You sleep on a burlap sack filled with straw and resentment, tucked next to the hearth because it's the only place not frozen solid at night. And even then, warm is a generous description. It's just less freezing than the rest. The air smells like burned lard, moldy wood, and other things you've stopped trying to identify. Your one garment is made of coarse wool, scratchy against your skin, never truly clean. It might have been boiled clean once this year. Maybe, probably not. It doubles as nightwear and workwear. You rise before the sun, before the roosters, before anything that resembles mercy. Why? Because the fire must be lit, water fetched, bread started, everything clean. All before the nobles yawn their way into the world. These tasks aren't yours alone, technically, but the other girls are skilled at vanishing just before work arrives. You haven't figured out how they do it. Maybe you just weren't born. Slippery enough. The hearth is cold, dead. The embers are just ash. That's a problem. A kitchen without fire is like a knight without armor still here, but a bit useless and probably humiliated. You shuffle outside barefoot, not because you like the sensation of frostbitten toes, but because your shoes gave out last spring and have since been converted into insulation under the pantry door. The courtyard is black and wet. The flagstones jab your feet. You gather twigs with stiff fingers and shuffle back inside, trying to summon flame from damp kindling and suppressed rage. Eventually, sparks catch. A flame licks upward. You cradle your hands above it until they feel more like flesh and less like dead leaves. You've bought yourself a few minutes of warmth, but next comes water. There is no plumbing in the castle. There is only you. You drag heavy wooden buckets from the courtyard, well, gallons at a time, each trip carving new aches into your shoulders. The yoke you balance them on digs into your bones like it hates you personally. For trips in, your arms throb, your legs feel like porridge, and you still haven't had breakfast. By the time the rest of the kitchen staff arrives, rubbing their eyes, cracking jokes, and pretending yesterday didn't happen, you're soaked, sore, and invisible. No one says thank you. No one even looks at you. You're just background noise with hands. The cook arrives in full storm mode, red-faced, sweating, already furious. She barks out orders and waves a wooden spoon like a sword. She points to the stew pot. It's still crusted with something unholy. That's your job now. Congratulations, you scrub. You scrub until your knuckles are raw. There's no soap, only ashes, sand, and lye. If someone remembered to make it, lye burns. So does ash, in a slower, grittier way. Your hands are a patchwork of blisters and hardened skin. The scullery is not a workplace. It's a form of punishment, disguised as a room. There's no real air in here. Just smoke, meat, stink, and heat. The one tiny window is so caked in soot, it barely remembers what daylight looks like. You lean over basins all morning, scraping grease from trenches and chasing rats off the counters with whatever tool is nearby. The rats aren't scared. They live here too. Honestly, they're better fed than you. Mid-morning, you haven't eaten. There's a piece of stale bread hidden in your apron. It's hard enough to be considered a weapon in some counties. You gnaw it in the shadows, hoping no one sees, but someone always does. You're reported, and now your new assignment is cleaning chamber pots. For a week by lunch, you've been promoted dungeon duty, which is really just industrialized crying. You chop until your eyes stream. No one checks if you're crying from onions or from life. Everyone assumes the onions. It's easier that way. The nobles are ready to dine. You carry platters into the hall, stepping only where you're told, making no eye contact. Never look them in the face. Nobles hate being reminded that servants are human. You stand for an hour holding a pitcher no one asks you to use. Your arms go numb. You don't flinch. Afterward, you clean again. The tables are disasters. Grease trails, bones, half-eaten pies, fruit spat out mid-bite. You scoop it all into the slop bucket. You're not allowed to sneak any scraps, but maybe you pocket a bit of crust, just to stay upright. The day blurs. You haul more water. You scrub more trenches. You're blamed for the dog vomiting in the solar, a room you've never even seen. It doesn't matter. You were nearby. Evening descends. The kitchen grows hotter, louder. Smoke swirls. Someone knocks over a pan. The cook shrieks. Flames threaten to leap. You smother them with your apron, barely blinking. Dinner's on its way. You eat again barely. A bowl passed between 5 girls. Thin stew, a root, maybe barley, possibly squirrel. You don't care. You eat what you're given. You always do. The nobles feast again. You stand behind them like a ghost. You don't speak. You don't move. You nod when spoken to. You apologize even when you don't understand what you're sorry for. Yes, cook. Sorry, cook. Won't happen again, cook. Eventually, the day dies. You return to the hearth. You scrub more pans, bones clinging to metal like stone. Your fingers barely work now. You're dismissed without words. You crawl to your spot on the floor. The fire is a whisper now. The sack you sleep on is damp. You reek of smoke and grease and onions and hopelessness. Someone's snoring. Someone's crying. You don't ask who. You stare into the half-dark and think of nothing. You didn't choose this. No one chooses this. You inherited it, like a family debt. Your mother bent over a churn until her back gave out. Your aunt boiled linens until she caught river fever. Now it's your turn. You won't rise. You won't become the cook. You won't be lifted into the ladies' service. That's a dream from another world. You will get slower. You will be replaced. Until then, you survive. You learn the unwritten rules. Don't speak first. Don't walk in front of the steward. Share the dry bread. Move when you hear boots. You're not remembered. But without you, nothing runs. You don't sleep well. You dream of water, of cold, of nothing. And in the morning, you'll rise again, because the fire doesn't light itself. Someone's already snoring beside you. Someone else is quietly crying into the darkness. You don't ask who. You don't want to know. You just lie there for a while, suspended in that strange place between sleep and thought, wondering, not for the first time, how you ended up here. But you already know. You didn't choose this life. No one does. You were born into it. Your mother spent her days in the dairy until her back folded in half from carrying too much for too long. Your aunt worked the laundry until the river gave her a fever she never walked away from. And now, the curse has passed to you. You're part of the grand medieval inheritance. A legacy of blistered hands and bowed heads, passed down like a ladle or a set of cracked dishes. There's no ladder to climb, no secret door to a better station. You won't become the cook. You won't catch the steward's eye and marry out of poverty. You won't be chosen as a lady's maid and learn embroidery by candlelight. That's fantasy. That's the stuff poets sing about in warm rooms you'll never enter. What really happens is this. Your hands grow slower, your fingers more crooked, and when you can no longer scrub fast enough, when you drop too many pans or take too long to carry a pot, someone younger, cheaper, and more awake takes your place. So you learn the unspoken codes of survival. You pay attention to the rhythm of the kitchen, the loud silences, the strategic disappearances, the way gossip flows like wine when backs are turned. You learn who's allied with who's safe to whisper near, and, more importantly, who's not. There are rules, of course. Never correct the cook, not even gently, not even when she's wrong and the stew is burning. Always offer the crustiest bit of bread to the girl with the bloodied knuckles. Don't walk in the steward's shadow. And if you hear a noble approaching behind you, move now. Step aside or be stepped on. Figuratively, if you're lucky, there's gossip. That's the real currency down here. One girl swears the chamberlain is slipping into the lady-in-waiting's bedchamber after curfew. Another insists he's actually pining for the Kaiser boy. Someone saw the red-bearded knight eat 5 figs in a row and then vomit into his helmet. That one's probably true. No one eats that many figs without consequence. Feasts and weddings are chaos incarnate. 3 times the guests, 10 times the work, and exactly 0 times the extra pay. You scrub, run, carry, stir, and sweat until you forget your own name. When those nights end, you don't feel tired. You feel emptied, like your bones have been scraped out and replaced with smoke and fatigue. And then there's winter, the hardest season of them all. You work through coughs that rattle your ribs and fevers that make your vision shimmer. You wear the same wool, shift for weeks, layered with scraps of other ruined garments. Sometimes the water in your bucket freezes solid before you can reach the door, but you keep going Because stopping means disappearing. You've been told suffering in silence is noble, especially for girls like you. Good girls don't complain. Good girls endure. And you used to have a name. People used to say it. Now you're just girl, or you, or there. You're not a person anymore. You're a task with legs. You're nothing special. You're not heroic. You won't be remembered. But without you, none of it works. The castle survives because you do. Because you rise before the sun. Because you know which squeaky hinge needs goose fat. Because you know which bucket holds drinking water and which one is for the mop. Because you scrub pots until they gleam like coins you'll never hold. There will be no statues, no songs. But if you vanished tomorrow, the kitchen would grind to a halt within days. You don't sleep well, you twitch, you ache, your dreams, when they come, are vague and strange sometimes, a meadow, sometimes a boat, sometimes just silence. You wake up dry-mouthed, sore, already behind. Another day begins, exactly like the one before, and no one notices, except maybe Lord Crumbs, because now you're not the maid anymore. You're the spit boy. Whether that's a promotion or punishment depends entirely on how much you enjoy being slower stowed in front of open flame, while contemplating your life decisions. You're somewhere between 8 and 12, small enough to tuck under the hearth, without tripping anyone, old enough not to cry every time you burn yourself. You were either orphaned, sold off, or convinced against all logic that this was an opportunity. Your job? Sit beside the massive hearth and turn the roasting spit. All day, slowly, clockwise, until someone says stop. Sometimes you're told you're turning too fast or too slow, or that you're not turning with the appropriate level of nobility. Once you got scolded for blinking too much. It's hot, not just warm and naturally hot, like being trapped inside a loaf of bread halfway through baking. Your cheeks are permanently flushed. Your hair is damp, even when no one else is. Sweating, the hem of your tunic is singed. You smell like every roast the kitchen has ever attempted. What once smelled delicious now makes you nauseous. Burns. Constant blisters. Standard issue. Sympathy. Non-existent. Blistered palm. Wrap it in a rag. Eyebrows singed off. They'll grow back. Fainted. Try to do it in a corner. If you spill anything, you'll get a slap. You don't get breaks. The meat doesn't care if your arms are noodles. The fire doesn't care if your sweat is stinging your eyes. The nobles, they care deeply but only about the goose being spun at the perfect speed. If it isn't, heads roll, figuratively, sometimes literally. Feast days are the worst. Bigger birds, longer spits. One time, a whole deer. It took 2 of you to rotate. Your partner had a lazy eye and a mean streak. He'd let go just to watch you panic. He disappeared last week. Rumor is he's working in the kennels now. You hope the dogs have manners. You sit for hours in the same position, your knees numb, your spine locked in a single aching curve. Once, your foot fell asleep so completely you thought you'd gone lame. The steward said you were being dramatic and hit you with a turnip. The kitchen never stops. Clanging pans, barked orders. Someone's always tripping over someone else. It's chaos. And in the middle of it, you're rotating meat like clockwork. No one thanks you. No one remembers you. But if the roast comes out dry, guess who gets blamed? When it's finally cooked, you help pull it off the spit. Hot, fat spits back at you. If you flinch, you're scolded. If you hesitate, you're hit. Then it's time for stew. or pies, or the cauldron of despair that smells like boiled onion and sadness. You don't know what time it is. You just know you're hungry. Sometimes someone tosses you a bone. Not metaphorically, literally. A gnawed rib with a few edible scraps. You crouch in a corner and devour it like a dog, then return to your crank. By late afternoon, your lips are cracked. Your hands are black with soot. You cough like someone 4 times your age. Nobles laugh upstairs. You'll never see the room they're in. That place has tablecloths, cushions, bread with butter. You turn so they don't have to. When the feasting ends, your night continues. You carry trays back down. You don't eat what's left. You just haul it. Bones into buckets. Plates into wash basins. The spit gets dragged for cleaning. It's heavy. Your arms beg for mercy. You don't get any. Someone calls out, "The Lord wants roast for the hounds." You start again. The dogs will eat better than you tonight. Again, it's nearly midnight. Your tunic clings to your skin. Your hair is greasy. Your hands tremble from hunger or fatigue or both. You're given a bowl of pottage, mostly water. A soft turnip floating like a ghost. You eat in silence. There's nothing to say. You scrub the knives, the pans, the spit. Every surface must gleam before the steward's rounds. If he finds one smear of grease, you'll be scrubbing the Lord's privy tomorrow. With your tongue, if he's in a mood. Night wraps around the kitchen like smoke. The last pot is hung. The cook has stopped yelling. You sit near the dying fire, too sore to lie down, too wired to rest. A rat scurries past. You don't even blink. Think about what came before whatever that was. Maybe you were a shepherd's son. Maybe your parents sold grain. Maybe they sold you. Or maybe they forgot. One less mouth to feed. There's no future. Only hope that your blisters don't fester and your knees don't fail too early. Maybe, just maybe, you'll become an assistant cook by 20. If you live that long. And then comes winter. You're not allowed in public markets until you've washed. Not that it matters. Washing helps about as much as tossing rose petals on a dung heap. The stench doesn't cling to your clothes, it lives in your skin now. It's seeped into the folds of your hands, the cracks in your nails, the fibers of your very being. People cross the street when they see you. Some look away. Others pretend not to. You've become something they dodge, like guilt. Your tools are simple. A rake, a bucket, and a shovel. Your uniform. Whatever thick, layered wool you can find, stuffed with moss, straw, or scraps of fabric in a vain attempt to muffle the odor. It doesn't work. The smell always finds you. No matter how many tricks you try, it slips through the layers like a curse. Your task is grotesquely straightforward. Climb down into the cesspits those deep, sloshing monuments to medieval wasteland. Shovel out everything the town or castle has expelled into the ground over the past half year. You go in before it spills into the streets. Because if it spills, there's no unspilling it. Yes, you go down into it. Ladders are sometimes provided. Ropes, if you're blessed. Most of the time, you descend with faith, balance, and a whispered prayer that your boots don't betray you. The moment you descend, it hits you. The smell, it's not just bad, it's a living thing. It wraps around your head like a soaked wool bag dipped in sick. It scalds your eyes, clings to your tongue, presses against your chest until your lungs forget how to function. You breathe through your mouth, then immediately regret it. Now you can taste it. You wade in, the muck squelches. Some parts are ankle deep, others knee deep. A few parts feel like they may never end. You don't dwell on that. You rake, you dig. The surface is bad, but the deeper layers, that's where the horrors brew. Grey, sludgy, crusted nightmares that shift beneath your shovel like they're trying to wake up. You don't ask what's in it. You don't want to know, but you already do. Human waste, of course. Animal too. Bits of straw soaked in nameless fluids. Fragments of cloth. Smashed chamber pots. Dead rats. And once, a chicken. You gave it a proper burial. You still think about that chicken. Every now and then, you find something useful. A coin, dropped in haste by a noble mid-relief. You keep it. It's yours. You earned it. You fill your bucket. Hoist it out, and dump it into your Carter wooden box on wheels that groans like it resents you. You do this again and again. A dozen times, maybe more if there's just been a feast. The nobles feast, and you ferment their aftermath. You always work at night, not out of choice, but because no one wants to see you or smell you. You move, by torchlight, surrounded by your own stench, pushing your load through the empty streets. The wheels leave behind glistening trails. The air wilts around you. If someone passes by, they cover their face, mutter a prayer. One child threw a cabbage once. You threw something back. It was a reflex. You're not proud. You're also not sorry. You take your load outside the walls to the dumping grounds near the fields. That's where all this horror ends up. It fertilizes crops. The very nobles who pretend you don't exist are eating turnips grown in their own waste. That's what you call the circle of life, or medieval recycling. Dawn creeps in. You're done emptying the cart, but your job isn't over. You rinse your tools in a pond that's already more filth than water. You scrub your boots, your hands, your clothes. It helps about as much as bathing in regret. The stink is stubborn. It's become part of you. People always know when you've worked. Some won't sit beside you. Others won't even speak. You tell yourself not to mind. This job matters. It keeps the city from drowning in its own filth. You're not a hero, but you're the only thing standing between civilization and ankle-deep disaster. You eat alone. Bread tastes like ash. Not because it's burnt, just because everything tastes like ash now. You drink ale because the water isn't safe, and because facing your job sober feels like cruelty. Winter is the worst, not because of the cold, but because everything freezes. Waste turns solid. Your breath turns to ice. Your hands go stiff. You break through crusts of filth just to get to the warm horror below. It's the only time you'll ever see steam rising and feel dread. Summer isn't better. It bakes everything into the air. The smell becomes airborne. Flies swarm. Wasps join in for reasons only nature understands. You sweat through your boots. You've tried everything to mask the smell. Rosemary, mint leaves rubbed directly into your arms. All it does is make the rot smell fancy. People laugh behind your back. Smells like a gong farmer is an insult now. They think you're slow. You're not. You know how to haul 40 pounds of rot up a rope with one hand while bracing yourself on a collapsing beam. You know which side of the pit floods first after rain. You know which torch oils don't explode near methane. That's not ignorance. That's experience. And here's the irony. You make more money than half the servants in the castle. Why? Because no one else will do this, ever. You live in a one-room hut, but it's your hut, and you bought it with filth. That's your leverage. That's your curse. At the end of the night, you drag your empty cart back. You lean your shovel. Against the wall, you collapse on a log knot, because it's clean, but because it's available. You sometimes sleep outside. The smell gets too much. Your wife, if you have one, demands it. Your kids say you smell like boiled cabbage and sin. You nod. They're right. Even in your dreams, the stink follows. It's in your nose, your throat, your soul. Your hands don't look human anymore. Cracked, calloused, nails stained black. You've given up scrubbing. You used to smell firewood, bread, rain. Not anymore. Now, if someone waved a basket of apples in front of you, you'd assume they were rotten. You've been rewired. The castle guards joke. Don't fall in, they say, like it's the first time. You fake a laugh. Once, one of them shoved you. For fun, you didn't laugh that time. You rarely dream of something else anymore. But when you do, it's always the same. A baker, maybe a scribe. Something quiet, warm, clean. But you always wake up with hands that smell like last night. You rinse your face, pull on your sackcloth, and go back to the pit, because someone has to carry the bucket. As the sky grays and roosters crow, you dump your last load, scrape the muck from your boots, breathe out your own name. The castle will rise soon, oblivious. Nobles will relieve themselves into polished basins and never ask what happens next. And you'll disappear again like the stink you drag behind you. Unseen, unnamed, the cleaner of kingdoms. The gong farmer, forgotten by everyone but the flies. Lunch isn't a meal, it's a battlefield made of chairs and egos. You carry not just platters, but map seating charts so intricate you'd swear they were cursed scrolls. Who eats what? Who sits where? Who must not be seated within dagger reach of whom? Also no one reignites a blood feud over pigeon pie. You whisper reminders. As you walk, Lady Crest and Lord Alric still aren't speaking. Not since the Lent wine incident. And if you forget that, you'll remember when she dumps her custard on his lap again. You manage titles. You correct names. You keep track of feuds that have outlived their instigators. After the nobles have eaten, the chamberlain takes you into the solar. It's warm there, quiet, almost peaceful, and he starts on the accounts. You sit across from him and read each line aloud, like scripture. Wax, salt, fish, ink, barley, soap, more barley. The list never ends. Sometimes he stops you and asks for calculations. How many loaves in a stone of flour? The weight of a cusk. If you hesitate, he lifts one eyebrow. That eyebrow carries more dread than a sword. You'd honestly prefer a slap. Once accounts are done, the visitors begin arriving. Nobles from other lands, wandering knights with too much armor and too little sense. Some distant cousin who always seems between holdings and never between meals. They come with trunks, servants, dogs, attitudes, and allergies. You show them to their chambers and take careful note of what linens they receive, which mattress they prefer, and which fruit they're currently pretending to be allergic to. No one will thank you for it. But if a towel goes missing, you'll be blamed. Also handle the castle keys. Or more accurately, you fetch them. The armory key. The wine cellar key. The upstairs wardrobe key that fits nothing and no one, but must be accounted for daily. You carry them in a pouch tied to your belt. You touch it constantly, like prayer beads. Because if those keys disappear, so do you into a latrine assignment or a whipping post. By late afternoon, the chamberlain has moved from reviewing to micromanaging. Salted herring shipment, delayed. A bolt of velvet, gone. A drunken priest, face down in the chapel pews, the vinegar missing again, the stables short on hay. The steward chimes in with commentary. You don't talk, you nod, then draft a courteous response in the chamberlain's handwriting. Yes, you even ghostwrite his sarcasm, and sometimes because your life isn't strange enough, you ghostwrite love letters. There's a noble woman who insists on romantic correspondence. She dictates behind a curtain while feeding her lapdog strawberries soaked in cream. You edit her rants into something that resembles passion and hand them off to a knight who goes pink to the ears every time he reads one. Evening creeps in. Candles again. You walk the halls with a taper in one hand and a snuffer in the other, trimming wicks, relighting the dead, muttering under your breath when the sheep-fat tallow sputters in your face. The castle is quieter now. The nobles drink, the servants breathe, and you exist between worlds. Not quite one of them, not truly part of either. You revisit the guest rooms, straighten the curtains, smooth the rushes, check for dead guests, spilled wine, or unapproved. Elopements, your feet scream, your head rings. Your fingers are stained with wax, ink, and responsibility. You haven't eaten since dawn, and you won't until the chamberlain finishes his supper and remembers you exist. Sometimes he forgets. You sit outside his chamber on a hard bench while he regales a bored page with tales from his youth. You doze with your chin in your palm, stomach folding in on itself like a failed loaf. Eventually, the door opens. He waves. 2 fingers. Dismissed. You bow. Mumble a thank you. Then drag your feet back to the servants' quarters. Your bunk is narrow. The fire is out. Someone has stolen your blanket again. You lie down half-dressed, too tired to argue, and stare at the beams above your head. You wonder if this is what power smells like: tolo, ink, sweat, and lavender. You used to imagine you'd learn secrets, understand how power works. You've learned the secrets. They're mostly about hemorrhoids, stolen pastries, and who thinks whom is insufferable. Power. It's just a deeper shade of exhaustion. The chamberlain says you're learning discipline, but what you're really learning is how to be invisible, indispensable, and unthanked all at once. You've become fluent in silence, a master of the polite nod, present but forgettable. There's talk you might be promoted one day to assistant steward, perhaps, or managing books in some dusty alcove. More likely, you'll be here until your back gives out or your eyes bleed ink. There is no pension, just a slower descent, and yet you show up. Because the castle runs on your quiet panic. Because someone needs to make sure the salt barrels match the winter plans. And if it's not you, no one will know until it's too late. You fall asleep, counting crates of barley in your mind. You dream in ledgers. Wake with wax on your cuffs and a headache in your bones. It's still dark. You rise, adjust your squeaky shoes. Time to light the candles again. The other servants barely tolerate you. You're not one of them. Not anymore. Your tunic is cleaner. Your vocabulary includes words like allocation and rations. But you're not one of the nobles either. They forget your name while you refill their ink. You exist in a liminal trench between hierarchy and humility, a ghost of administration. A moving piece in a game that doesn't remember who placed you there. And still, you show up. Because showing up is what keeps the whole thing from collapsing. And tomorrow, like today, you'll carry the lists, count the candles, absorb the blame, and across the courtyard, in a barn that never sleeps, someone else is rising too. You begin your day in the stable. The horses wake before the sun does, snorting steam into the cold air. Hooves echo softly in straw-laden stalls. You stir in the loft above them, curled under a patchwork of rags. If you've got 3 hours of sleep, you call it a victory. The boards creak beneath you. The horses shift. Somewhere below, something very large relieves itself with conviction far too close to your pillow. You are the stable boy. Your job is simple. Everything. Muck, brush, haul, shovel, sweat. You get kicked regularly. You've bled from places you didn't know could bleed. And you've apologized to animals who clearly outrank you in intelligence, charm, and dietary variety. You climb down into a wall of cold. Your boots are stiff. Your tunic stinks. Your hands crack as you begin mucking out stalls. Shovel, pitch. Shovel again. It's not noble. It's not even dignified. But it must be done before the master of horse arrives or you'll earn a fresh lecture and possibly a fresh bruise. You move fast, but not too fast. Speed spooks the horses, and spooked horses are worse than angry lords. You've broken fingers. You've taken hooves to the ribs. You coughed blood for a week once. Still, you love them. The horses, they don't lie. They don't yell. They just are. The stable smells like hay, sweat, manure, and something beautifully wild. It's sharp and raw but honest. You know when something's wrong by scent alone. You can smell colic. You can smell stress. You can feel a storm coming by the way their breathing changes. You feed them next. Hoist heavy sacks. Drag bales. Try not to twist your back like you did last winter. The master thought you were faking and threw a bridle at your head. Some horses are gentle. Others bite. You've got the scars. You check their hooves. Whisper to them as you work. They know your voice. They trust you more than any noble ever will. Grooming comes next. Currying, brushing, detangling, polishing saddles, scrubbing tack. If the Lord is riding, everything must gleam not because he'll notice, but because the master of horse will, and you'll pay if anything's amiss. Dogs show up sometimes. Hunting dogs, overbred and undertrained. You clean up after them to dot when the Lord decides he'll ride. The stable erupts. You saddle his favorite gelding, the one that hates being touched. You adjust the stirrups, wipe the bit, check every strap twice. Then you step back. Invisible. If the horse flinches, it's your fault. If the noble falls, it's your fault. If the sky looks at him funny, it's still your fault. You fetch water, sweep the yard, stack hay. The smell of leather and sweat clings to your skin. Your shoulders burn, your legs ache. Sometimes you sit down, a stool in the corner, a tin of warm ale. You stare at dust motes drifting through the shafts of light like tiny ghosts. You don't talk. Your jaw hurts from clenching it all day. But you're not done. Evening means more mucking, more sweeping, more quiet curses. One mare's fouled. Her bedding again. She's anxious. A storm's coming. You can feel it too. You sneak her a carrot, maybe two. She nuzzles your hand with a soft velvet nose. That's the closest thing to love you get. The sun sets. You climb the ladder. Lie down, fully dressed. Your bed smells like mildew and horses. You fall asleep to the rhythm of breathing hooves. Tomorrow, it starts again. They still call you boy. You're 17, and your back sounds like it's older than the barn. But you don't correct them. You just keep brushing. The kitchen maid sometimes leaves you crusts. The blacksmith nods when he passes you. One time, A knight handed you a silver coin after you calmed his warhorse before battle. You still have it. You never spent it. It's not money anymore, it's proof. Proof that, for a fleeting moment, you weren't invisible. You're not stupid. You know your place. There's no fairy tale ladder from stable boy to steward. No enchanted curry brush that transforms into a sword. You're not going to become a knight. You're not even going to become a squire. But you know horses. You know how to treat a strained tendon with a strip of warm cloth. How to soothe a foal that's lost its mother. How to spot a limp before it becomes a sentence. You matter, in a quiet way, and you've seen what happens to boys who can't survive. That kind of quiet. The ones who raise their voices too often, or stop waking up early, or talk back one time too many. They vanish, walk away one night, or are sent away, or worse, and no one asks why. So you keep your head down, you do your job. When the rain pours through holes in the stable roof, you just shift the straw. When summer brings rot, you shovel faster. When winter freezes your breath to the beams, you rub your hands together and get back to brushing manes, because the horses are still there, waiting, breathing, trusting. And some days, that's enough. Not every day. Not always, but most days. So you lie back in your pile of hay and rags. Close your eyes and listen to the only music you trust. The soft shuffle of hooves in straw. The creak of old wood. The steady breath of creatures who've never judged. You once tomorrow it begins again. Because you are the stable boy, and the horses need you. You don't stay for the praise there isn't any. You stay because when you walk through the door, the horses nicker. They recognize your boots. They trust your hands. In a world full of shouted orders, sneers, and punishments, this is the one place where you are trusted. Not for who you are, but for how you move, how you speak, how you listen. That kind of trust, it's rare. Even in a castle, you wake up with a paw in your mouth. Again, it belongs to a turnspit dog. Short-legged, long-bodied, built like a sausage with PTSD. He's drooling on your sleeve and snoring like a tiny bellows. His fur is slick with kitchen grease, and you're pretty sure he's been rolling in duck fat again. You don't mind, he's warm. And, to be honest, he smells better than most of the humans you work with. You're the turnspit dog keeper. That means you're the overworked, unseen, slightly singed bridge between noble cuisine and the medieval dog-powered rotisserie. Yes, that's a real thing. The dog runs, the spit turns, the roast cooks, and someone has to make sure the dog doesn't collapse mid-goose. That someone is you. Your shift begins before the fire does, before the kitchen wakes, before the rooster decides it's worth it. You stretch your back until it pops. You sit up, immediately step in something wet, and pray it's just spilled broth. The dogs are already stirring. They know. They always know. You haul the first of them off the bedding snipe. Stubborn, greasy, angry, he bites you lightly on. The wrist fed its single quotes is her third day in a row on rotation. You mutter an apology, rub his ears, and lead him into the kitchen, where the fires are already belching smoke and the cook is already screaming about the swan again. You open the turnspit. Wheel. It looks like a hamster wheel. If hamsters were 30 pounds, had kitchen trauma, and were deeply cynical, Snipe climbs in without protest. Mostly, you lock the gate behind him. He starts walking. The spit creaks. A pig possibly bore, possibly just. A very unfortunate pig begins to turn slowly over the flames. Now you watch. You monitor. You whisper encouragements like a sports coach with fleas. The trick is keeping them moving without pushing too hard. If they slow down, the meat cooks unevenly and the cook loses her mind. She throws things, hot things, sharp things, emotional things. If the dog stops completely, the spit jerks, the roast slips, and you spend the rest of the day being told you've ruined an entire feast. Sometimes, Christmas. It's May. There are 4 dogs. You rotate them like firewood, to work, to rest. None of them really rest. They whine, they twitch, they chew ancient bones while you rub their legs and whisper kind words that would sound ridiculous in any other job. You're raising canine gladiators, and they trust you to keep them from dying in a puddle of gravy. And you do. You time their turns. You feed them bits of gristle. You wipe the grease from their eyes. You pull their muscles gently when they limp. You carry the lame ones when the wheel ends, because no one else will. Because if the roast comes out dry, the nobles don't get blamed. The cook doesn't get blamed. You do, or the dog. But it's usually you. And yet, ... you don't leave. You don't run. You don't dream of being anywhere else. Because these dogs know your voice. Because they stop whining when you touch their ears. Because in the brutal symphony of clanging pots, shrieking orders, and blistered hands, there is one note of softness. A dog who rests his paw on your leg and sighs with trust. That's enough. Not always. Not forever. But for today, it will do. You clean the wheels too. Not because anyone told you to. No one tells you much. But you remember the noise one sharp, echoing squeal during a banquet last month that made the cook's temple twitch so hard she launched a ladle at your head. It left a welt shaped like shame. Lesson learned. Now the wheels are greased daily, the spokes brushed down, the grime cleared with rags until they shine like they matter. Sometimes the Lord passes through the kitchen. He doesn't speak to you, never has. He just nods vaguely toward the spit and murmurs something about the earthy flavor of the roast. That flavor, that's your sweat, and probably a few dog hairs. You're welcome. Feeding the dogs is a gamble. Officially, they're not allowed to eat scraps from the noble table, but dried peas and boiled oats won't keep a turnspit moving. So, when no one's looking, you sneak them bits of crust soaked in gravy, or the fatty end of a goose leg, or a shred of ham that fell unnoticed. They love you for eaten, till one of them tries to take your whole thumb. That nearly happened last week. Button got a little too excited. Burns are constant. Your forearms are a topography of blisters, scars, and soot. You've been singed so often, the skin feels less like skin and more like dried parchment. The kitchen is always too hot. Even in winter, it's a furnace of fire, smoke, and screaming. In summer, it becomes a divine punishment for what, you're not sure. But you suspect it's generational. The fire never truly dies. It just naps. Even at midnight, the coals whisper heat into the air like ghost breath. You sleep near it, close enough to be useful, far enough to be forgotten. You've inhaled so much ash that your snot runs black. Your cough sounds like something mechanical failing. Your eyes are permanently red smoke-stung, yes, but also because crying takes less effort when it blends in. You used to think dogs were cheerful, loyal, loving. That's a myth. These dogs were bred for endurance, not affection. They're not pets. They're machines with pulse and fur. They don't wag their tails. They work. And when you're late with food, they revolt. You once walked in to find 3 of them sitting calmly in a circle, gnawing on your shoe like it was a statement. It probably was. No one trained you. You learned by trial, by error, by blood. You keep a stick nearby. You don't like using it. You really, really don't. But sometimes Guts, the biggest, meanest of them all, just stops. He plants his feet and looks at you with those dark, furious eyes, like he understands the absurdity of it all, but lacks the words. And you have to choose force or failure. You've named them all, of course. Snipe, Button, Moors, and Guts. Guts is the one with a scar on his cheek and a temper like a storm cloud. He'll bite your heel for breathing too loud, less you've got bacon grease. Then he's your best friend. You suspect he sees the world the way you do, hot, hungry, and full of smoke. Once a noble's child wandered into the kitchen. She pointed at the wheel and shouted, "Look, a spinning puppy." You smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was the first innocent thing said in that kitchen all year. Her tutor yanked her away and gave you a look like you'd exposed her to a crime. You didn't say anything. You never do. Somewhere along the way, your posture changed. You hunch nor years of ducking under low beams, crouching by the dog pens, hauling heavy spits still hot from the flame. Your knees crack when you walk. Your shoulders ache when you breathe. You're 17. You used to dream of being a falconer. You imagined yourself in a leather glove, a bird perched on your arm, squinting at the sky like you understood something. You thought you'd walk through forests, feel the wind, track prey, feel powerful now. You can't even hear birds over the constant drum of paws on wood. When you get a rare moment alone, you sit by the back door, just outside the fire's reach. One of the dogs, usually Moors, the quiet one, curls up beside you. She doesn't ask for anything. She doesn't bark. She just breathes. Warm, steady, real. You rest your head against her side. You stay there until the bell rings again. Then it's back to grease and noise and movement. More meat, more spinning. The dog gets no thanks. You get even less. At night, you scrub your arms with sand and cold water. Not because it works, but because it's what you've got. You lie in the straw near the hearth. The fire hisses softly. The dogs twitch in their sleep. You listen to the sizzle of fat and the soft rhythm of breath and pause. And you dream of running. Not running away, just ... running. Somewhere open, somewhere cool. Somewhere that doesn't smell like smoke and meat and sweat. But then the wheel starts again. Always the wheel. Sometimes you hear the nobles talk about the kitchen. Charming, they say, rustic. They love the roasted swan, the herbal aromas, the sound of cheerful chaos. They think it's quaint that their food comes with folklore. They don't know about you. They don't know about the dogs. If they do, they think it's delightful. A detail for the bard to mention the turning hounds of House Waxford, like it's poetry. You once heard a bard say, "Turnspit dogs enjoy the exercise." You nearly choked laughing, but you've learned a strange kind of patience in here. You don't argue. You don't correct anyone. You just grease the gears. Feed the dogs. Rotate the teams. Rub sore legs. Whisper things you'll never admit aloud. You've seen worse. Last year, a boy got his hand caught in the gear. You don't know what happened to him. He just didn't come back. You have a cloth pouch hidden in the beams. Inside is a bit of cheese, a button shaped like a flower, and a dog's tooth guts lost it during a particularly bad morning. You kept it like a relic. A reminder that even the toughest thing in this place can still break. Your ears ring. From the noise, from the shouting, from everything, your bones hurt. Your stomach's never really full, but sometimes sometimes one of the dogs will nuzzle your arm after a long shift. Moore's does it most often. A soft nudge, a warm presence, a flicker of recognition. Not from the kitchen, not from the nobles, but from something alive. And somehow, that's enough. Because here, even the smallest kind, nests a warm flank, a breath that doesn't turn away. A dog that doesn't bite is worth more than gold, especially when the fire never dies, and the wheel never stops. You fall asleep to the rhythm of paws on timber. You wake to the same, like the night itself is on a spit. Slowly turning, you sit. Up slowly, every joint stiff from yesterday's labor. Your knees ache like old hinges. Your back feels like it's been wrung out and left to dry in the cold. Before you've touched water, before you've lifted anything, your hands already burn. They always do, because you are the laundress. And that means today, like yesterday, means water, soap, fire, and pain. You dress in silence. There's no one to impress, and even if there were, you couldn't. Your wool kirtle is still damp from where it hung near the hearth last night. Clinging to the faint scent of smoke, tallow, and ash, you pull it on anyway. You have no second option. Over it goes your apron, once white, now stiff with salt from old sweat, boiled linen, and the ghost of every soap-stung morning. There's a stain down the side from lye water that splashed last week. You'd scrub it out if you had the time, or strength, or hope. You wrap a scarf around your head. Your hair is brittle. You stuff your feet into cracked leather shoes that lost their soles to the last frost. You move like someone already behind. Schedule because you are. The castle sleeps, at least the parts of it that matter. Stone halls echo under your steps as you pass through them with your basket slung across one hip. Inside it, yesterday's scenes, bundled in cloth, linen napkins, stained with wine, shirts yellowed with sweat, undergarments still damp with what no one wants to name fear, sickness, or shame. Some of these pieces belong to nobility. You know which ones. They're softer. They smell like perfume and pride. And if anything happens to them, if they shrink, fray, tear, or stain, you'll pay the price. You've seen girls dismissed over a scorched napkin. You've once lost 3 days' worth of rations because a chamise went missing. You're still not sure if it was your fault. Outside, the cold air hits you like a slap. You cross the courtyard and head toward the well. The pump wheezes like an old man. You heave the buckets into place and start drawing water. It splashes, cold and hard, echoing in the morning stillness. You carry the 2 buckets across the yard, balanced on a wooden yoke across your shoulders. It digs into your collarbones with every step. You don't flinch, you just walk. Past the smokehouse, past a scullery, past the kitchen door swinging on its crooked hinge. You reach the yard where the copper cauldron waits blackened from yesterday, nestled above a bed of grey ash. You crouch beside it and light the fire with flint and trembling fingers. You whisper to the spark like a prayer. It catches. By the time the water starts to steam, your cheeks are stinging with cold, your fingers red and raw. You stir in the lye made last week from hardwood ash. You filtered it yourself through cloth and gravel and patience. The water clouds, it smells like death. And soap, you stir it with a wooden paddle that reaches nearly to your shoulder. You grip it hard, arms shaking slightly from the weight. You remember the last time your foot slipped on the frost-slit ground. You still have the scar shiny and pink like new wax on your forearm. Now you begin the sorting. Coarse linens here, fine linens there. The lord's shirts expensive, hand-stitched, smuggle in their own pile. The ladies' underthings, lace-trimmed and barely worn, are handled with a reverence that has nothing to do with respect and everything to do with fear. Woolens are set aside. You don't boil wool, not unless you want to see a cloak turn into something fit for a doll. You've made that mistake once, only once. With the water near boiling, you begin the soak. The linens go in first, slowly, carefully. The steam wraps around your arms and fogs your face. The fabric sinks into the cloudy heat like it's surrendering. You stir them gently but firmly. The goal is to loosen stains, not dissolve the cloth. You hum while you work. Quiet, tuneless. Just noise to keep the silence from feeling like a weight. Then comes the scrubbing. You move to the flat slab of stone near the well. It's cold, always cold. You kneel beside it, knowing your knees will ache the rest of the day. You press a servant's tunic down hard against the surface. You reach for the lye soap coarse, stinging, effective, and begin to rub it in. The rhythm comes naturally. Now, rub, rinse, beat, scrub, rub, rinse, beat, scrub. The knuckles of your fingers crack open and sting. The soap burns in the cuts, but you keep moving. You dip the cloth into cold water, then hot. You wring it out and start again. You speak to no one. There is no one to speak to. Some days, another girl joins you. Sometimes she cries. Sometimes she's gone by the next morning. You finish the first shirt. Start the second. Time passes in the churn of water, the rasp of fabric, the hiss of steam. You lose track of hours. Eventually, the fine linens are ready to be rinsed. You carry them to the well. The buckets are heavier now. Your arms scream. Your spine curves. Your hands are shaking. You rinse the cloth again and again, cold water, splashing onto your chest, soaking your sleeves. You hang them to dry on wooden racks in the wind. The air bites at your damp clothes. The linen flaps like sails from ships you'll never see. You return to the fire. More soap, more scrubbing, more kneeling. Your back aches. Your shoulders burn. But you don't stop, because you can't. Because this is your life. Because someone has to make the castle clean. And because no one ever thanks the laundry girl, but everyone blames her if something smells off. You reach for the black soap, thick and grainy, made from tallow and lye. It bites into your hands and doesn't let go. Harsh on the cloth, worse on the skin, but effective. You lather it into the linen with slow, heavy strokes, your knuckles whitening with the pressure. The stone slab is unforgiving. The cloth is soaked, stubborn, and heavy as sin. You dunk it into the rinse barrel. Underwater clouds instantly grime, bleeding out in soft, smoky spirals. You allow yourself a flicker of a smile. That's progress. The rinse water is ice. So cold your hands go numb within minutes. So cold it makes your bones ache. But you keep working. You switch hands. You clench and flex your fingers to coax blood back into them. Every now and then, you blow warm breath into your palms and rub them together, but it barely helps. You think of the scullery maids, the spit boy, the girl hauling firewood. They're cold too. It doesn't comfort you. It just reminds you you're not suffering alone when the worst of the dirt has loosened. You haul the linens to the stream that skirts the outer wall of the castle. The water is shallow here, fast and clean. You step into the mud and kneel beside the bank. One by one, you beat the cloth sheets, tablecloths, anything too big for the tubs. You swing the paddle, smack, swing, smack again. Each blow knocks loose another layer of someone else's filth. Each splash seeps further up your sleeves. Your knees have vanished into the freezing muck. Your fingers are red, then white, then colorless. Around you, a few other washerwomen work in silence. From the castle, from the village, from nowhere, and everywhere, no one talks. They don't need to. The only sounds are water, wood, and breath. And every so often, a soft groan that escapes without permission, when the linens are beaten, rinsed, and wrung nearly dry by hand process that pulls at your shoulders like a cruel game you hang them out. Over bushes, over lines strung between crooked trees. In summer, the sun is your ally. In winter, you hang them by the hearth and pray nothing catches fire. Damp cloth and open flame are uneasy neighbors. You return to the pots, stir the next batch, feed the fire, fetch more water, always more water. You lose time, there is no clock, just the cycle. Haul, soak, scrub, wring, hang, repeat. By midday, your forearms are useless. By afternoon, your lower back has locked into something between a knot and a scream. Still, you keep going, because the linen must come clean. There's a moment, just one, when you lift the lady's veil from the tub and realize a wine stain is finally gone. A mark that refused to budge all morning has surrendered. You hold it up, steaming and pale, like some rare, perfect thing. Against the smoke and grey sky, it almost glows. You feel proud, almost. Then you notice a small fray at the hem. Your stomach drops. You mutter a curse under your breath and press your thumb over it, as if that will undo the damage. You'll patch it tonight, neatly, and hope no one notices. If they do, well, you don't want to think about that once. Everything is hanging in the cold wind, linens flapping like quiet flags of surrender. You sit for a moment, just a moment. You perch on an upturned bucket near the hearth, hands resting on your lap. You reach into your apron pocket and tear off a bit of bread, hard, dry, mostly crust, but it's food. You chew slowly, watching the linens sway and ripple in the wind, like dancers with tired legs. Then you're up again. You begin collecting the dry pieces. You fold each shirt with stiff, frozen fingers, checking for spots, for damp, for wrinkles that might be mistaken as disrespect. You sort the noble garments into a separate basket. Between each, you lay a cloth, like padding as if stacking weapons in a case. This isn't laundry. It's armor for diplomacy. You deliver these by hand, silently, carefully, without meeting anyone's eyes. You are invisible. You must remain that way. At the kitchen door, you exchange a look with the scullery maid. She smells like fish and onions and wet rags. You smell like ash and soap and frozen sweat. The cook yells about missing cloths. You silently hand her a folded bundle. She grunts could be thanks, could be dismissal. You don't wait to find out. You leave before she remembers your name. Your final stop is the Lord Solar. You knock, a servant answers. He doesn't greet you, doesn't even look at you. You hand him the basket with a careful bow. He takes it and closes the door. No words. Your hands are roaring now. Your neck aches like it's been carrying buckets alone. Your back feels twisted and stretched and tired of holding you upright. But nothing was stained, nothing was torn, nothing was lost. Today, that means victory. You return to the laundry yard. You put out the fire. You empty the tubs. You rinse the soapstones. A sheet has blown loose from the line. It lies half in the mud. You grab it before anyone sees. You brush the dirt off as best you can. It's only a little dirty. You'll wash it again tomorrow. You don't complain. There's no point. As the sun begins to lower behind the battlements, you sit again, this time for longer. You stretch your hands toward the fire's last heat. The pain pulses back into your fingers like blood returning after being somewhere too far away. Your nails are chipped. Your fingertips are peeling. But they still move. In your pocket, tucked deep in the folds of your apron, you keep a scrap of linen. Just a torn edge from a ruined towel. You've been stitching it slowly into a handkerchief. Tiny flowers, crooked, but yours. There's no time for it tonight, but knowing it's there, that helps. You eat in the servants' hall. Warm ale, pottage, a piece of bread that was soft 3 days ago. You eat quickly, quietly, eyes low. You say nothing. When it's over, you return to your pallet near the chimney. It's dusty, a little damp, but warm. Your shift is over. Tomorrow will bring more water, more soap, more fire, more pain. But tonight, you sleep, and in the linen-scented dark, with the ghosts of steam and smoke still clinging to your hair, you let yourself breathe. You tear a piece of hard crust from your apron pocket. It's stale, tough as bark, but it's food, and it's yours. You chew slowly, jaw aching, while your eyes follow the dance of linen in the wind-white flags fluttering above mud and stone, soft and ghost-like, waving to no one. You don't sit long. There's more to do. You rise, knees cracking, and start collecting the dried pieces. Shirts crisp with cold, tunics stiff from steam and wind. You fold each one with care, inspecting every inch for stains missed or seams threatening to come loose. The cloth is cold against your raw fingers. You check twice, then you sort the noble garments into their own basket. Between each, you place a clean cloth like a shield, like a warning, like layers of armor. These aren't clothes, they're status. Mistreat them, and the punishment will find you. Even if no one saw it happen, you will deliver these yourself, quietly, no eye contact, no words, just careful steps and a bowed head. You must remain invisible. At the kitchen door, the scullery maid nods. She smells like fish and onions and something burnt. You nod back, a brief flicker of recognition between two ghosts in aprons. Inside, the cook is shouting again. Cloths missing, rags misplaced, spit flying. You hand her a neatly folded bundle of kitchen rags without saying a word. She grunts. Could be thanks, could be dismissal. You leave before she can remember your name. The final stop, the Lord Solar. You knock. A servant answers, looking at you like you're the breeze that found its way inside. You bow, hold out the basket. He takes it without meeting your eyes. No thanks, no nod. The door shuts, and that's that. Your hands are raw. Your neck has become a single line of pain. Your back feels twisted, like it's been wrung out with the linens. But nothing was stained. Nothing torn. Nothing missing. That means today was good. You return to the laundry yard. The fire has burned down to glowing bones. You extinguish it carefully, slowly pouring water on the embers, listening to them hiss like angry whispers. You empty the tubs. You rinse the soapstones. You scrape the paddle clean and hang it from the wall. And then of course there's one more thing, a sheet, loosened by the wind, lies half in the mud. You spot it before anyone else. You lunge for it, heart catching in your throat. It's only lightly soiled. You brush the dirt off with your palm. You'll wash it again tomorrow. No one will know. You don't complain. You never do. The sun sinks behind the battlements, painting the stone in faded gold. You sit again, this time longer. You stretch your hands toward the last flickers of heat from the fire. The pain returns with the warmth, pulsing back into your fingers like old debt. Collected. Your nails are chipped. Your fingertips are peeling, cracked open like old bark. But your hands still move, still work, and in your apron pocket, tucked deep, you carry a scrap of linen, torn from a ruined towel. You've been stitching it into a handkerchief in stolen moments, a lopsided flower in red thread, a crooked border. It's not much, but it's yours. There's no time for sewing tonight. You won't touch it. You won't even look at it. But knowing it's there, something no one gave you, no one owns, makes the difference. You eat in the servants' hall. Pottage bread, warm ale that tastes like sour smoke. You eat quickly, quietly, eyes low. Number one talks much. Everyone's too tired to pretend to be people. Afterward, you return to your pallet near the chimney. It's dusty, the stone is cold, but it's a place to lie down. That's enough. Your shift is over. Tomorrow will come again, with water, with soap, with fire and pain. But tonight you sleep. You've seen this before. If a horse rolls too long on her side, she can twist something deep and vital, gut, tendon, spirit, and then it's over. You don't think, you move. You throw open the storeroom door and grab the halter. She's thrashing, wild-eyed foam at the mouth, panic in her muscles. She nearly catches your shin with a kick, but you duck and hold on. You tug her head up, coax her into standing, walk her in tight, slow circles. Your voice a whisper over the rising sound of her panic. Her eyes roll white. You keep moving, keep whispering. Eventually, the stable master appears, reeking of onions and ale. He curses, grabs the rope, takes over with rough hands and louder words. You step back, shaking. Your arms are streaked with dirt, spittle, and blood, may be hers, maybe yours. Your tunic is ripped at the hem, but she's standing now. She's trembling, but she's alive. That counts. You wipe your face on your sleeve and return to the aisle. 2 new guests arrived while you were saving a life. Their horses are fresh off the road, eyes wide, legs jittery with travel nerves. You speak to them like you'd speak to children, soft tones, no sudden moves. One nips your sleeve, testing you. Another stomps the ground hard, just missing your toe. You soothe them anyway. You refill the troughs. You fetch more hay. You sweep the stone aisle again for the 3rd time today. Not because it's dirty, though it is, but because movement keeps your muscles from locking up. You find a torn girth strap and mend it with twine and a bone needle. It's not pretty. It's not elegant, but it will hold. The sun disappears behind the outer wall, and the wind slides in like a thief. You close the stable doors, latch the bolts, and light the lanterns one by one. Each pool of warm gold becomes a small island against the dark. Check each horse one last time. Nose rubs, hoof checks, bucket refills. You pat Smoke on the neck. You sidestep Gauze, who always tries to bite. You scratch Willow just behind the ear, where she likes it most. She closes her eyes and leans in gently. That moment stays with you. When it's all done, you climb the ladder to the hayloft. The rungs creak beneath your weight. You peel off your boots and flex your raw feet in the straw. They're swollen, blistered, stiff, but they're still yours. You're covered in dust, hay, and old sweat. But none of the horses were injured. Nothing caught fire. No gates left open. That makes it a good day. You eat your second meal of the day. A wedge of cheese traded for a favor. A thick hunk of onion bread the kitchen refused to serve because it was too hard to chew without apology. You chew it anyway. Slowly, with your legs tucked beneath you like a curled-up question. Outside, the castle glows faintly, torches flickering like fireflies trapped in stone. Laughter drifts from the great hall. Somewhere, you hear the pluck of a lute, soft and distant, like a memory with no owner. You close your eyes. It sounds like a dream someone else is having. You don't mind below. The horses shift. One snorts, one sighs, another rattles a bridle softly. They're settling, like you. Like always, you lie back into the straw, arms folded. Beneath your head, your body protests the stretch. Your fingers ache. Your knees crack. Your back has gone stiff again, like a board pulled too tight. But you're not dead, and neither are the animals under your care. That counts for something. You think, briefly, of the stories nobles love, the ones about knights and kings. They talk of banners and glory, of tournaments and swordplay. They forget you. They forget Uther, one who saddled the horse, cleaned the bit, whispered to the beast that would carry their precious lord into either fame or death. You're not bitter. You're just not surprised. You're not here to be remembered. You're here to work. You're here to sleep. When the work is done, the shutters rattle with wind. Below you hooves scuffle against straw, slow and steady. And finally, the weight of the day folds itself over your body like another blanket. Your last thought, before sleep, is of a hoof print, fresh in the mud, rimmed in frost, still steaming from the warmth of the animal that left it. It won't last. It will vanish by morning. But for now, it's real, and so are you. You wake with a jolt. Your hand still clutches the base of your spear, the brazier beside. You has burned low, just a few coals glowing faintly in the dark, flickering like the last heartbeat of a dying fire. You must have nodded off, but only for a moment. Just a breath, you hope, because you are the night watchman, and nothing good comes from falling asleep when the castle sleeps. You rub your eyes, shift your weight on the cold stone bench, and peer through the narrow arrow slit beside you. Still night, still fog, still your watch. Nothing moves out there, but you keep looking anyway. That's the job. You're the castle guard, not a knight, not a soldier in polished armor, not a man-at-arms with a title and stories sung about him. Just a guard. You stand, you wait, you freeze. And if something ever goes wrong, if shadows become shapes and shapes become danger, you're the first to die. It's your second night shift this week. Your knees already feel like they belong to someone twice your age. You roll your shoulder and feel the dull throb of a bruise still blooming from yesterday's training drill. The sergeant called it a lesson in awareness. You called it something else. Silently. Your orders are simple. Watch the gate. Watch the wall. Walk the perimeter when the bell strikes. Report anything strange. And above all, don't fall asleep. You listen for the next bell now. Distant, muffled by stone and sleep. Maybe 5 hours left until dawn. The wind whistles through the murder holes above your head. It's a sharp, steady sound, like a blade being drawn over and over. You pull your cloak tighter. The wool is scratchy and thin, already threadbare at the elbows, but it's all you were issued. Your breath curls in the torchlight like smoke from a dying fire. You stretch your legs and pace a slow, familiar loop round the gatehouse interior. The stones are slick with old soot and damp, and you know every crack, every uneven flagstone like they're part of your own body. You've worn a groove into this path with your boots and your boredom. At the outer parapet, the wind hits harder. Your cloak flaps against your legs like a wet banner. You glance down into the courtyard. It's quiet. A stray dog noses around near the kitchen door, tail low, hopeful. Somewhere to your left, a drunk stumbles out of the barracks latrine, humming something tuneless and forgetting to shut the door behind him. You don't call down. Not your problem. Not tonight. You check the hinges on the portcullis, still locked, still rusted, still your responsibility if it fails at the wrong moment. You run your gloved fingers down the iron, cold biting through the leather. It sticks in your memory, the feel of metal that could save a life or trap one. You think, briefly, about the day shift. Better, maybe. There's sunlight, noise, people. But with people come inspections, barked orders, drills, and being barked at by lieutenants who haven't earned their scars. At night, you're alone, forgotten. That's good, mostly. Except if something goes wrong. Then suddenly, everyone remembers the night guard. Back inside, you return to your bench. Your legs are tired, your back is stiff. You rest your head against the cold stone wall. Your helmet lies beside you, too heavy for hour 7 of silence. You rest one hand on your spear like it's a walking stick, or a crutch, or a promise. You hear something just beyond the gate. Not quite a footstep, not quite a voice. You stand too fast. Your knees scream. You grip the spear, steady your breath, and move toward the sound. You pause. Wait, it's nothing. A bird, the gate settling. A ghost you don't know. You don't care. You wait a moment longer, then exhale slowly and return to your seat. False alarm. You're jumpy tonight. Can't afford not to be. You sit again, slowly, every joint a complaint. You pull a strip of dried meat from your pouch. It's hard, cold, gristly. You chew with effort, jaw sore, and remember that this is dinner. Once a noble boy passed by and sneered at your meal. He held a pastry in one hand, a laced handkerchief in the other. You didn't say anything. You just kept chewing. That's what guards do. Keep chewing, keep watching, keep breathing until they don't. You remember your first winter watch. The pain in your toes, the purple fingers, the skin that split and bled. You learned tricks. Wool inside the boots. Greasecloth beneath your gloves. It helps. Barely. Midnight comes. The bell tolls, low and slow. You rise, make your rounds. East. Tower to west. Past the armory. Past the chapel. You pause there. Light flickers behind the stained glass. The priest is praying again. He never sleeps either. You climb the narrow steps to the war walk and scan the trees beyond the bailey. They sway in the mist like figures trying not to be seen. The moon lays a pale stripe across the field, sharp as a knife. You see no movement. You see everything. You think about your mother. Her farm, the cider, the way she'd hum when she worked. You wonder if she's still alive. You hope she is. You make it back to your post just as the brazier breathes its last ember. You don't bother relighting it. The cold keeps you more awake than the heat ever did. Later, the captain arrives. His boots echo against stone sharp, heavy, final. He enters, looks you over. No words at first. He checks the ledger, taps the pike rack with the end of his halberd. Still breathing, he asks. Barely, you reply. He grunts and walks on. No praise, no smile, just the echo of expectation. You're not here to be thanked. You're here because someone has to be. You stretch again. Your shoulder cracks. The fog is lifting now. The eastern sky is starting to pale. Soon the bells will ring for morning prayer. Soon the day guard will arrive loud, rested, clean-shaven. You'll nod, hand over your spear, fade back into silence. You descend the tower steps, heavy-footed, heavier-souled. You walk to the barracks, past the rows of sleeping men, and find your cot. It's rough, thin. The blanket smells like mildew and old sweat. But it's yours. You pull off your cloak, set your boots beside the bed. Sit down, just sit. You close your eyes for a second too long, and in that moment, the castle begins to wake, shouting. Filters in from the yard, buckets clanking, hooves scraping on stone, the cook barking orders loud enough to rattle the rafters. Morning chaos has begun, but your shift is over. You've earned your sleep. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if you know you'll be right back here tonight, because the castle doesn't guard itself. You think back to last year. You still remember it in sharp flashes. The night bandits came, 6 or 7 of them, drunk on stolen wine, starving. Disparity, the kind of desperation that makes men reckless and stupid enough to charge a fortified gate in the middle of winter. They came just after midnight, assuming the wall guards were asleep. But you weren't. You sounded the bell. You shouted. You slammed your spear against the gate, hard, until the sound woke anyone. You held the gate while others stumbled from their bunks, dragging on armor, half-dash dreaming. One of the men made it to the PORTC, ULLIS, tall, wild eyes, axe in both hands. You didn't think, you thrust. The spear slid in just under his ribs. His mouth opened, but no words came out, just blood, and a sound like choking on stones. He collapsed at your feet. He died gurgling in the frost. You didn't sleep for 3 nights after that. Every creak, every gust of wind sounded like another footstep in the dark. Your hand wouldn't stop shaking. No one thanked you. The steward sent down an extra crust of bread. The sergeant nodded once and said, "You did your job." That was it. You healed. Eventually, the bruises faded. The frostbite on your fingers stopped cracking. And when you were steady again, they posted you right back on the gate, because now they trusted you to stay awake. That was your reward. You shift your weight on the cot, bones grinding like millstones. There's a knot in your hip that's been growing for years, a souvenir from too many nights leaning against the same slab of frozen stone. You ignore it. You've gotten good at ignoring things, hunger, cold, the snide looks from passing nobles who don't know your name but know they're better than you. The slow realization that if something truly bad ever does happen, you will be the first one dead. You've accepted that, but not without pride, not the kind people raise goblets to in the Great Hall, not the kind that comes with songs or silver, the quieter kind, the kind that makes you stand straighter. When no one's looking, you keep the castle safe. That matters, even if they never say it aloud, even if they never notice. You adjust your gear one last time before sleep. The leather straps of your jerkin are cracked and stiff, the iron studs dulled with age and grime. Your helmet hangs on the hook beside your bunk, dented at the rim from a long ago training fight. You should replace it, but you won't. It still works. That's enough. Around you, the other guards breathe deep in sleep. One snores loud enough to rattle the straw mattress. Another twitches, caught in some dream of battle or flight. You envy them. They've done their part. Now they rest. You lie. On your side, you stare at the stone wall beside you. The mortar lines run like roads crooked, worn, uncertain. You trace them with your eyes until they blur. It's like watching a map to nowhere, and somehow it soothes you. Somewhere far above, in the solar, nobles stretch under feather-stuffed blankets, silk sheets, warm fires, velvet sleep. You sleep with a knife tucked under your pillow, a cloak wrapped around your feet to keep the cold from gnawing at your bones. And still, even now, if something were to go wrong tonight, if fire bloomed on the horizon or steel rang on the gates, it would be you they send first, because that's what castle guards are for. You close your eyes just for a moment, and for a few precious hours, you don't have to watch anything. You don't have to listen for footsteps that don't belong, or windows that shouldn't be open, or voices echoing where no one should be. Sleep, when it comes, is shallow and short, but it's yours. You rise in silence, not because you might wake someone. No one sleeps near you. They've all long gone to their corners. The scullery maid curls by the hearth, her face buried in the crook of her arm. The stable boy has vanished into straw. The cook's snores drift faintly through the kitchen door like a rhythm you know by heart. But for you, work begins now, in the hollow hours, the hours nobody wants. You are the night. Watchwoman, you're not a guard, not exactly. You don't wear armor. You don't carry a sword. You're not posted to the gate, or trained to take down intruders. But you walk the castle's bones with a lantern in one hand and a ring of keys in the other. And if something catches fire, if someone cries out, or if anything stirs that shouldn't, you are the one expected to find it first. You wear soft shoes, patched, tied with old cloth strips. The laces fray, but you've learned to move without a sound. That's the first rule. Don't echo. Your dress is wool, plain, thick, layered with flannel. Underneath, because the stone corridors can split your teeth with their cold. You tie your scarf over your head, tuck your sleeves tight to your wrists, and strike flint to light your lantern. It clicks once. The tallow wick catches. Warm yellow flickers across the damp walls. First stop is the nursery. 2 noble children sleep. Beneath embroidered quilts, gold thread, stitched dragons. You don't know their names. You're not supposed to. But you know who kicks off the blankets, who moans in fever, who weights the bed when the wind howls too loud. You straighten the cover, tuck it under the smaller one's chin, then turn and leave without a sound. Next, the tapestry hall. Grand battles woven in thread. Lions, lances, blood-red banners. You walk slowly. Your flame dances across glassy eyes, stitched into the faces of dead knights. Their gaze never leaves. You, their woven swords always raised. Behind you, something clicks. You don't turn. You keep walking. You're not paid to be afraid. You pass the library. It's locked. Always is at night. But you check the handle anyway. Last winter, someone forgot. Rats got in, chewed through a manuscript older than the castle itself. The steward's voice rang in your skull for a week. You test the latch, still firm. You move on. The chapel is quiet. One candle still burns at the altar. You pause, snuff it with practiced care. Not for lack of reverence, but caution. Last year, a votive flame caught a velvet curtain and nearly took the east wing with it. You touch the iron candlestick to be sure it's gone cold. Then you climb a narrow staircase, spirals upward. Your lantern sways. Your knees ache. This is your third round tonight. And the castle is larger than anyone remembers until they're the one walking it. You walk with purpose, not fast, not slow. You listen. You know every sound this place makes. The scuttle of mice, the groan of wood drying in cold, the whisper of condensation dripping down old mortar. Normal, expected, but in the east wing you find a window open. That's wrong, it was supposed to be latched after supper. No reason for it to be open now. You set your lantern down, quietly. You close the window with gentle hands. You don't report it. The steward doesn't believe in ghosts. You do. You check the laundry room next. Earlier, the air here was thick with steam and soap. Now, it's gone frigid. The linens hang stiff on their lines, like frozen ghosts. You reach up and tug one down. A noble's cloak, velvet, the hem singed black where it kissed a torch. You sigh. You fold it neatly and tuck it under your arm. You'll mend it yourself before dawn, before anyone notices. That's part of the job, too. Fixing the quiet mistakes. The kitchen corridor is next. A pot left on the hearth still lets out soft tendrils of steam. You lift the lid, onion, broth thin, sour, forgotten. You tear a crust from your apron pocket and dip it. Just a bit, just enough to remember what food tastes like. You don't eat with the others. You're not on their schedule. You don't belong to any shift. No one saves you a plate, but you've learned which shelves hide a wedge of cheese, a shriveled apple, a crust no one would miss. The cook pretends not to notice. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she does. Maybe she once walked these halls herself. You pass the stair to the Lord's Solar. You don't go up. You're not permitted. That stair belongs to another world. One with slippers warmed at the hearth, silk sheets, and rooms that don't leak cold from the corners. Voices live up, they're loud ones. Certain ones, they command, they expect. You walk past, because down here, no one commands you, only the castle. You don't go up the stairs to the Solar, you just watch it from below. From the world that doesn't get warmed slippers or silver trays, you turn away and head toward the servant dormitory. The corridor narrows here, ceilings lower, doors plain and close together. A baby cries behind one of them sharp, sudden, lonely dot. You knock gently, no more than twice. A mother opens the door, eyes blurry, hair hastily tied. She doesn't speak. You pass her a small flask of warm water wrapped in cloth. She takes it with a nod and a look that says more than words would. You step back into the hall and leave her to it. You walk softly. Sometimes, when the castle sleeps, the walls feel alive, not haunted exactly, but heavy. Heavy with breath, with memory, with the quiet press of all the lives that have passed through them. The floor beneath your feet has been scrubbed by 1,000 hands like yours, worn smooth by the same tired steps. The stone arch overhead was carved by someone whose bones have long since turned to dust. You don't feel small, you feel connected, and that's what keeps your feet moving. You take your final round just before dawn. Your lantern is low, no wax stub, nearly gone. You tilt it slightly, coaxing the last curl of light from the wick. The flame sputters but holds. It's enough. The flickering glow paints long, trembling shadows along the hallway walls. You pass through the lower storerooms. This is the danger zone, where sacks of grain are stacked too high, and kindling lies in bundles, and rats run like whispers in the dark. A spark here could eat the whole castle from the inside out. You keep your eyes sharp, your pace slow. You pause by the armory door. It's cracked open. That's wrong, you weren't here earlier. But you know this door is always shut tight. Locked, usually. You step closer. The wood creaks under your hand. Your heart taps faster in your chest. You don't have a weapon, just your keys, just your voice. But still, you step inside. The air smells of iron and oil. Racks of weapons line the walls. Spears, pikes, axes, blades, all appear untouched. You check the back wall. Nothing, no one, just shadows and cold. Maybe a draft nudged it open. Maybe someone left it unlatched. Still, you shut it firmly. Slide the bolt into place. Feel it click home like a final breath. Back at your seat by the kitchen hearth, you let your body sink down. Just for a moment. The warmth from the coals barely reaches you, but you pull your feet close and unwrap the velvet cloak. You carried from the laundry room. It needs mending. A small scorch at the hem. A tear just above the fringe. You thread your needle. Your stitches are slow, but even. You've done this before. It's not perfect, but it's good enough that no one will ask questions. You finish just as the bells begin to toll low, echoing, calling the castle awake. A door creaks open somewhere. A groan answers it. Another day begins. You fold the cloak gently, patting the corners flat. You return it to its peg on the laundry line. No one will know it was ever scorched. You climb the narrow ladder to your cot above the linen stores. It's barely more than a shelf with a blanket, but it holds you. You curl into yourself, skirt wrapped tight around your legs, body folding like parchment. You are a letter unread, a name unspoken. You close your eyes. The castle breathes around you, stone settling, wood shifting, pipes clattering faintly behind walls. You sleep, and for a while you belong to no hour, because sometimes, in the middle of the night, the castle exists outside of time, its own quiet world, stitched together by people who walk softly, carry keys, and never get remembered. It's its own little world. This castle at night, a world made of shadow and draught and silence. A place that breathes slow through the stone, exhales creaks through the beams, and hums with the lives that passed through it long ago. You've learned to listen to that breath. You know the difference now, between a floorboard swelling with cold and a rafter settling wrong, between the moan of the wind through the old arrow slits and the weight of something that shouldn't be there. And still you walk, in your apron pocket. There's a small pouch of salt, not for seasoning, for protection. The old cook gave it to you, once, years back, when your hands were still too soft and your eyes still too wide. She said evil things don't like salt. That if you ever saw something in the halls that didn't belong, truly didn't belong, you should throw the salt at its feet and run like hell. You smiled. You haven't had to use it, but the pouch stays. It's heavy in a way that isn't weight. In the east corridor, near the ruined chapel with ivy choking its window frames, there's a patch of stone that's colder than the rest. Always. Season doesn't matter. Summer or frost, it stays cold as grave breath. You step over it, always have. Not because you're afraid, exactly, just habit. No one talks about it. Not out loud. Sometimes you pass a nobleman's mistress, sneaking from one room to another. Slippers in hand, silk trailing behind her like spilled wine. You lower your eyes. You let your keys go quiet. You didn't see her. That's your job. Secrets are not yours to keep, but they are yours to carry. Once, you caught the steward himself in the chapel stores. He was stuffing candles into his cloak, not stealing for profit, just hoarding light. His eyes met yours. No lies, no excuses, just a look that said, I know you saw. You said nothing, neither did he. But the next week, you found a blanket on your cat, thicker than the usual scratchy wool, folded neat. No note, no word, just a debt, quietly paid. These are the trades that keep a castle from crumbling. Spoken debts, silent bargains, favors sown between shadows. You've grown fluent in that language. It doesn't need sound. It needs presence, timing, stillness. You walk beneath the great window overlooking the courtyard. You stop, just for a moment. You let the lantern hang low, its glow shrinking to a trembling circle at your feet. Above you, the stars shimmer cold, hard pinpricks against a black sky, unreachable but steady. They're always there. No matter what's burned, no matter what's broken, the stars return. You think of your mother, her hands always moving, her voice soft with stories told over washtubs and bread dough. She used to say the night had ears, that it listened to the women who worked while others slept, that it remembered them, maybe. It does. You've whispered wishes into the dark before. Nothing grand, nothing golden dot, mostly small things, warm boots, no rain, a less cruel winter. None were answered, but the act of whispering, it mattered. It still does. The watching comforts you. You stretch your back, feel the tight line of ache across your shoulders. You take a long breath that fills your chest and empties slowly. Then you walk, the same halls, the same locks, the same careful steps through shadows that stretch like old stories. Because someone has to. Because someone always has. And tonight, like last night, and like tomorrow, that someone is you.